Hello, Mr. Bible. Did you know you're my favorite book?
Thank you. But did you know I'm not really one book? I'm actually 66 different books, written at different times, in different places, by many different people.
I didn't know that. I just thought you simply popped out of the sky from the direct hand of God.
Haha, no. In fact, the process of putting me together took centuries.
It did? Why don't you tell me what happened? How did you get put together?
I can be divided into two parts, the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Old Testament is a collection of sacred books of the Jews, written in Hebrew, dating as far back as several centuries before Christ. By 200 BC, however, the complete list of 39 books were agreed upon as the sacred writings of the Hebrew Scripture. For Jesus and the first Christians, this was the Bible, what we today call the Old Testament. In fact, Jesus would have read the Greek translation, which is called the Septuagint, which means 70. It was called 70 because legend has it that 70 wise men sat down separately to translate the Hebrew Scripture into Greek, and when they were finished, discovered that each version was exactly the same.
Wait a minute. Haven't I seen some of you that have more than 39 books in the Old Testament? And they have a funny name.
You're talking about the Apocrypha.
Yeah, what's that?
Well, at the time that the 70 wise men sat down to translate the Hebrew Scriptures, there were an additional 7 books to translate. These additional books were not accepted by most Hebrew-speaking Jews in Palestine at the time. But because the first Christians used the Septuagint as their Bible, the Christians were in the habit of using these extra 7 books. Later, the church fought over whether they should be included in me. To make a very long story short, Catholic Bibles include those 7 books, but not me. I'm a Protestant Bible.
Well, thank you for clearing that up. Now, what about the New Testament?
Well, after Jesus ascended into heaven, the first Christians were a little busy running around and telling others about him. But gradually, they began to sit down and record the stories of Jesus. Many of the apostles also wrote letters to each other and to early Christian communities. These documents circulated throughout the early church and were often read aloud in worship services, as well as passages from the Septuagint. For many years, that seemed to be enough. But in the 2nd century, a controversial preacher named Marcion began to argue that the Old Testament portrayed a different God from the God that the Apostle Paul wrote about. He published a list of books that he considered to be official Christian scripture. The list was made up of mostly letters of Paul and the Gospel of Luke. However, the rest of the church disagreed with Marcion. In 190 AD, the first list of Christian writings similar to today's New Testament appeared in a church document. Over the next 200 years, the church continued to debate which books belonged and which didn't. Revelation wasn't a very popular choice. Neither was Hebrews, but both made the final cut. 2 books which didn't make the cut were the Shepherd of Hermas and the Letter of Barnabas.
I really wish they'd left Revelation out.
Sorry. I think they thought it would make a good movie someday. Finally, in the year 397 AD, preachers, pastors, and a council of bishops met in Carthage and determined the final list of 27 books that should be considered official scripture. The New Testament, along with the already accepted Septuagint, and there you have it. Me, the complete Holy Bible.
But what about all those books they left out? What if there was something really important that should have been in you? What if there's some big secret about God that they shouldn't have left out?
That's not what the first early Christians thought. They considered me to be the real deal. Everything you must know about God and the way God worked through Jesus is found in me. Nothing else is needed, and don't you dare take anything out.
Sheesh, I really wish Revelation hadn't made it in.